A production fee for your Hometown Health Connection was made by Buffalo Healthy Living Magazine and its sponsors. Having fled war, persecution, and torture, Buffalo's population of people that arrived as refugees are revitalizing and diversifying Buffalo. Yet challenges remain for both Buffalo and its newest residents, as the United States has one of the most individualistic cultures in the world, as posted by the University at Buffalo Office of Global Health Initiatives, that recently held a summit to address these concerns. While the U.S. has resettled more refugees than any other country, our resettlement program has not kept up with the increase of the global refugee population, which has increased by about 50% over the past 5 years. While there were approximately 26 million refugees worldwide as fiscal year 2020 hit, the U.S. resettled just a small fraction of them. The limit on refugee resettlement is set by the President of the United States each year in October. Didn't know if you knew that. Thus, the limit for 2021 has been increased to 60,000 refugees in the United States, and that number will increase significantly in the future. What is happening in Western New York to help these people who come here as our newest neighbors? Find out on this special edition of your Hometown Health Connection. I'm John DeSciullo. Samantha Lashaw is on assignment. We have a roster of guests who are doing so much in our community, but before we meet them, let's have a quick lesson to set up our discussion. First, what is an immigrant? An immigrant is a person who comes to live here permanently from a foreign country. Now, many of our parents were immigrants who came here seeking a better life for themselves and their families. What is a refugee? A refugee is a person who is unable or unwilling to return to a country because of having been persecuted or has a well-founded fear of persecution based on his or her race, religion, nationality, membership in a particular social group, or political opinion. Most are coming here from the Congo, Burma, Ukraine, Bhutan, Afghanistan, El Salvador, Pakistan, Russia, and Ethiopia. What is an asylee? Well, that's an alien who seeks entry to the U.S. at a port of entry who is unable or unwilling to return to his or her country of nationality for fear of persecution or a well-founded fear of persecution based on race, religion, nationality, membership in a particular social group, or political opinion. Asylees are eligible to adjust to lawful permanent resident status after 1 year of continuous presence in the United States. Today we're going to talk about refugees, the people who most genuinely fear for their lives, the people who may love the country they come from but cannot live there because it is too dangerous for them to do so. So now let's meet our guests. Ali Kadhum has a master's degrees in social work from UB. He is a mental health counselor and case manager supervisor at BestSelf Behavioral Health. Ali and his wife came here as refugees during the war in Iraq and were approved by the United Nations because they had a valid reason for fear for their lives. Ali experienced many of the same things as the refugees with whom he works when he first came here in 2008. Prior to coming here, he was a middle school teacher in Iraq after earning a BA in education from the University at Baghdad. All refugees that come to BestSelf are referred to Ali. Ali's wife, who also works at BestSelf, is a nurse practitioner and knows firsthand what it feels like to be an outsider. They have 2 children who were both born in the United States. Our next guest is Dr. Molly Carr, Chief Executive Officer of the Jewish Family Services of Western New York. She received a master's degree in organizational leadership from Adai College and a PhD in policy from Niagara University, where she completed her dissertation research on U.S. refugee resettlement policy. Dr. Carr has over 2 decades of experience working with refugees, including having served as the Executive Director of Journey's End Refugee Services, Executive Director of the International Rescue Committee in Missoula, Montana, and Deputy Director for Administration for the Refugee Support Center in Nairobi, Kenya. And our next guest is Dr. Anna Mongo, the Chief Program Officer at Jericho Road Community Health Center, where she directs the center's community development programs, including the Hope Refugee Drop-In Center. Anna co-founded a Refugee Services Post-Resettlement Refugee Agency, has long been an advocate for refugee agencies, and is a member of the Buffalo Immigrant, Refugee, and Asylee Coalition. Dr. Mongo speaks English and Swahili. However, there are 59 languages spoken at Jericho Road Community Center. Welcome to all of our guests here to Hometown Health Connection. A very important topic to talk about. Ali, we're going to start with you. People who see you often tell you that they were physically and mentally fine when they were in their own countries, and then suddenly after arriving here, they experience symptoms that maybe they never felt before, physically and mentally. Can you talk about why this is a common issue and how that may have impacted you and your family from what you experienced?
Sure. So thank you for having us. Just to clarify, I speak Arabic, so most Arabic speaker clients, they come to me. So, talking about why many people, when they come here, they start to have symptoms of mental illness. When we think about pre-migration, migration, and post-migration, so parent and caregiver think about the priority needs for family instead of individual. So, and after post-migration, after they come to United States, they met their needs for their family, and the symptoms of mental illness start with probably psychosomatic backache, stomachache, or so these gradually lead to more traumatic event that they live in their life. So, and when they come to our clinic and they tell us, I mean, we have this kind of symptoms, and in most culture there's no PTSD or probably depression. They mainly talking about the symptoms of the mental illness is more than the diagnoses. So we try to explain it to them, and building a trust to create safety environment for a client to feel safe and secure, to start to talk about their own story and the struggle that they live in their life. So we've been seeing a lot of our clients come to our clinic sad or worry, and transfer to happiness and more confidence with their daily living, and able to manage their emotional and difficulties. So by finding job and integrating the life here with community.
It's very, very brave of even you and your family to come here, and I can't imagine the stress. I mean, you know what it's like when you maybe meet a new neighbor. I can't even imagine, or you move to a new neighborhood. I can't even imagine moving to a new country with everything that comes with that. So,
sure.
Congratulations to everything that you've done.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of the, I consider one of the very difficult or harder decision in my life to leave my family back in Iraq, my mom, brother, sister, and the place where you grow up, the schools, the community, and the culture, language, and weather. So everything connected when you're born in a place. I mean, there's a lot of memory, and I've been seeing many immigrant and refugee, they have the same feeling. Since they come to the United States, they start to have adjustment disorder, and this is very common in many new American, we can say. The first year, it's difficult to live their life with culture and with probably weather. So, and the wonderful things, we have a great community here speaking different language, and we've been seeing people in Western New York integrated the life quicker, probably to compare probably with other cities and the states.
And you are right, Ali. We do have a great community here, and Dr. Carr, I would imagine that with the way the community embraces folks who come through, it's important. And housing is important too. How do you help with the housing?
Yeah, housing is incredibly important. You know, when you think about it, your safe space is your home. That's where you live your daily life. It's where you go when you want to feel comforted. And refugees have been forced from their homes, so it's critically important that upon arrival we work with them to find them housing that is safe and meets our standards, but so they can start that integration process, and it's the founding part of their integration process here in the United States. So as an agency for refugees who are new to the community, we actually work with landlords to find housing for them before they arrive here. And that way we can make sure the housing is up to standards. We can make sure everything that's needed for the refugees to start their lives are in that home, from beds to pots to pans to toothbrushes, because most times refugees arrive, all they have is what's on their back or in their bags. And you know, sometimes a family of 12 will arrive with one suitcase. So that, you know, that initial housing is absolutely critical to starting the foundations for integration.
And Dr. Mongo, I would think, you know, health issues are also very important, and people who come to our country may be feeling good, but as Ali just said, they might then start to, you know, regress a little bit with anxiety feelings, and they should be checked. And how do you handle the health care for somebody who's just come in?
So Jericho Road is really proud to be able to offer in-person interpreting for almost all of our clients. Every once in a while we'll have to use a phone interpreter, but for the most part, we have live in-person interpreters in our clinic. As part of the resettlement process, they have to see a doctor within 30 days, and we welcome many of those clients through our doors. Getting to know them, to understand them. Sometimes the bigger issue is not so much they're sick or not sick, but they don't know how to use our healthcare system, they don't know how to call for help and when to call for help. And so really trying to do education, work with the family to feel comfortable talking to a doctor, speaking with a doctor. One of the first groups of refugees that I ever worked with was the Somali Bantu, and for many of them, a hospital represented the place that you went to die. So coming and building a relationship with a doctor was a really big deal for them, because to them it didn't represent help, it represented death. And so working with that culture, building bridges, helping them understand what we're doing, that often you don't need to go because you're sick, you're just doing a well check, helping people get shots for school, eventually for what they need for their following up on their immigration status. Those are all things we deal with. And once in a while we get something interesting like malaria. Our doctors sometimes have to know, you know, what are some of these tropical things that maybe you wouldn't see generally in Western New York,
Right.
that someone coming from overseas might have been exposed to at some point.
And you mentioned the languages too. I would imagine, ladies, you both have experienced that, because you know you're resettling people in housing and with medical care and social services. So how do you all work together when it comes to connecting as an agency? I would think there has to be some synergy. I know you've been in this for a while.
Yeah, absolutely. We can't do it alone. And our job in refugee resettlement is not to do everything. It's to lay the foundations for the integration process and then support the refugees as they connect to other communities, other services in our community, and to work in partnership with them. For example, we work together as 5 agencies, Jericho Road and JFS, Journey's End, the International Institute and Catholic Charities, to make sure that we can advocate on behalf of the refugees, we can communicate with government agencies, and we can work with landlords and other partners. And we do that in collaboration because there's no way we could do it in isolation.
Yeah.
The needs of people as they begin the integration process can be pretty extensive. And you know, we each have our specialties that we bring to the table to support each other.
Dr. Mongo, you're shaking your head. So you ladies have worked together along with the other agencies for many years.
Yeah, we absolutely have. And I mean, at the end of the day, we might be the people at the airport picking them up. And I say we because I've worked at one of the resettlement agencies. Jericho Road doesn't do that in general, but we're some of the first faces they see. But at the end of the day, you know, the school system is involved and county offices are involved and all sorts of different people, and learning how to interact with those processes, with those other people. Our job isn't to do things for people. Our job is to help people understand how to do them for themselves, and it takes all of us to do that.
Ali, when you first came here, and you know, I'm sure you went through some issues to feel accepted, how do you now work with others who are coming to our community to make them integrate, and how do you educate the community to accept those who are coming into our area?
Sure. So I can say there is a 4 core of stress when people arrive here. The culture is one of them. Social isolation when they come here is very challenging for them. Resettlement process and integrated, and also it comes to the trauma where they come from, and this is 4 core of stress. So we have a great community here and resources in Western New York to link, clients with service provider, and we have a lot of bilingual professional. As I work with BestSelf, there's a lot of people speaking different language. They finish their education, or they already came with a wonderful education to help community. And this is our passion, feeling to support the community standing their feet. Especially many of them, they have a very difficult time due to the war or natural resource disasters happen. So when they come here, people are passionate to help them and guide them to the right resources in terms of open business or going to college to finish their education or finding job. And we are lucky to have these resettlement agencies in Western New York, having like about five resettlement agencies, and also our service provider here is very culturally competent when it comes to working with different population and diversity, and this is one of the very successful things in Western New York. When we send them to the hospitals, there's always language line, there's always welcoming to the people who doesn't speak English, and helping them to put them in the right path. So yeah, and we've been seeing also the refugee and the immigrant community, they have the same feeling. Refugees help refugee, sometimes neighbor, friends, family member, etc. Yeah.
We have just about a minute left in this segment, and Dr. Carr, I would think that employment and self-sufficiency would be important as well.
Absolutely. You know, from the first orientation overseas until they arrive here, and after they come to the United States, we're talking to refugees about the importance of working. You know, not every refugee can go to work. We do have individuals come in over 65 or disabled, but the majority of refugees, when they arrive, they come here and they're eager to get out and get to work and start taking care of and sustaining themselves. So on average, most refugees are working within 3 to 6 months, about 85%. And you know, the idea of work becomes ingrained, and it becomes very important to the integration process. Work is where people start meeting people outside of their culture. They start learning to use the English language more. So it's not just about the income, it's also about the social community engagement piece as well.
All right, we're going to continue our conversation, and we have some important information for you where you can connect with these organizations. Before our discussion continues, I want to share some information about the organizations represented on the program. Jewish Family Services of Western New York. They're located at 70 Barker Street in Buffalo. Their phone number is area code 716-883-1914, and their website is jfsbuffalo.org, and they could use your donations anytime. Another organization that would appreciate your support is the Jericho Road Community Health Center. They're located at 184 Barton Street in Buffalo. Their number is area code 716-348-3000, and the website is jrchc.org. BestSelf Behavioral Health, another organization always in need of support for its many programs, has multiple locations throughout our hometown. You can connect with them by calling 716-884-0888 and online at bestselfwny.org. We'll be right back. Buffalo Healthy Living Magazine is a free, full-color magazine distributed throughout Western New York. Now, more than ever, as we all want our families and friends to be safe and well, Buffalo Healthy Living Magazine is devoted to health, fitness, and nutrition for people of all ages. It's a great read and also has great recipes. Pick up Buffalo Healthy Living Magazine all over our hometown or go online anytime at buffalohealthyliving.com. Welcome back to your Hometown Health Connection. We're continuing our discussion about the refugee population in Western New York with several guests, Dr. Molly Carr from Jewish Family Services of Western New York, Dr. Anna Mongo from Jericho Road Community Health Center, and Ali Kadhum, himself a refugee who is at BestSelf Behavioral Health. And I wish we had so much more time, and promise me all that you'll come back for future discussions. But Ali, I want you to tell me about World Refugee Day, when it is, and why it's so important.
Yeah, so when I came in 2008, so this is one of the things we want to make Buffalo as a home for us. So I started to be connected with the community, and we found some people, and they said, let's do playing soccer. And some people, the United Nations, they have a World Refugee Day. This is like a formal event. So we said, let's celebrate that event in a different way, through sport, activity, cultural performance, to bring this piece and celebrate the diversity in a community. We start with the food. People start to share their dishes and start to share their story, doing some dancing. So it was really fun. I mean, I grew up in Iraq. I never experienced this rich of diversity from Africa, Asia, Middle East, South America, and people, they come and they start to share this powerful story and background about their life. And I love to make my kids grow up in this kind of diversity, to accept other, to understand and the world how is small, and making a community as a one. So we started in 2009 till today. I mean, we're gonna have on July 17, Cultural performance, unfortunately, due to the pandemic, I mean, we make it small, but hopefully next year we will have it, I mean, larger to compare in the previous years. So this is going to be July 17, and to celebrate the diversity and peace in Western New York for immigrant and refugees.
Well, we'll look forward to that. It's going to be at Clark and Kent. We call that the Super Street because of Clark Kent and Superman. And if you're watching this in an encore presentation, you want to make sure that you can support the organization at wrdwny.org. Dr. Mongo, we were talking about some of the social determinants of health. Dental care is a part of it as well, but define that, the social determinants of health. That's an interesting phrase.
So social determinants of health is a catchphrase that's been coming up more recently, and it really refers to what are the factors in a person's life that prevent them from getting health care, whether that be transportation, whether that be issues in their home. All sorts of different things can, prevent people from getting health care. So Jericho Road has tried to take a really holistic view of healthcare, and looking at the whole person, both spiritual, mental, physical, and saying, how can we look at all of these things, assist a person along their journey to the best health possible.
It's a very important piece that it all sort of comes together. Dr. Carr, I know you're working closely with the Congolese population as well. And talk to me about that and maybe some of the issues of trauma that go with a refugee coming in.
Yes. So we serve refugees from all over the world, but the most recent refugee population have been Congolese refugees coming in, particularly people who fled from North Kivu. Now remember, Congo is a very giant country. It's about the size of the United States east of the Mississippi. So the Congolese we're working with are generally from North Kivu region who have been living in refugee camps since before 2005. So, for some people that's their entire lives. So not only did they experience trauma through the persecution that they experienced, the reason they had to flee their home, but they were also traumatized while living in the refugee camp. And then the process of moving to the United States and starting a new life without knowing the language or the culture is also a very traumatizing experience. So refugees are experiencing compounding trauma. On top of that, you have children who are now starting to learn to adapt to live in the United States. And sometimes we see, because of the trauma they experienced, that they display behaviors that are less than ideal in a school setting. They may be aggressively angry, they may strike out, and all of this stems back to the experiences of trauma and having to learn to cope with trauma. So we work very closely with, right now, Congolese children, but we're developing additional programs beyond that through a program called Trauma Systems Therapy for Refugee Youth to help them develop the skills to help regulate their emotions and the feelings and the challenges because of the trauma, and also overcome stigma to mental health so that they can feel comfortable receiving mental health services.
Yeah, trauma I would think is pretty significant considering the countries like Ali had come from, where war is a common issue. Dr. Mongo, what makes Western New York such an interesting place for refugees to come and resettle? And are we doing enough as a community to welcome them?
So I would make the argument that Buffalo has been fabulous. I would not at all say we're not doing enough. I think there's always ways people can contribute, people can do more. But I have, especially during this time of COVID, been completely overwhelmed with the generosity of the Western New York community in wanting to make sure that people have clothes, that people have homes, that people have furniture, that people have rides, places, supplies, food, all of those things. I found this community to be amazingly generous. This last 4 years has been tough politically for refugees. The number of refugees coming in has decreased significantly. And at a time, initially when that stuff was starting to happen, our community was protesting against those things. Our mayor was waving a flag in the front of City Hall that said refugees are welcome. So I find Buffalo to just be an amazingly wonderful and diverse, welcoming community.
It is, and a very generous community. Ali, what did you think of Buffalo when you first came here? And what do you want to see for your family who are now settled here in the Buffalo area?
Yeah, I always talk about my story, leaving my family back in Iraq, coming for a place while I'm in our airport, and I found I remember in 2008, a group from one of the churches in Western New York, Church of Nativity. So I came through Journey's End, and I found this a wonderful group waiting, and telling me, welcome to Buffalo. And they holding banner, welcome Ali, Iman, Noor. So this is a welcoming environment for me, and it's like give me hope and happiness that there's a family waiting me, even I don't know this family. So this is, since 2008 until now, I said I will never, change my location. It's a beautiful place, to help my family grow here. And also, we've been very good connection with different organization and community for that environment. So we really recommend people to come to this place due to a lot of resources and also support from different organizations that make a family start their life easy. Yeah.
Well, Ali, we are happy that you are here with your family, and we thank you for everything that you are doing to help others. Dr. Mongo, Dr. Carr, thank you for everything that you are doing as well. And as we mentioned, these organizations need your help. So we're going to have that for you as we end this edition of your Hometown Health Connection on how you can help and continue to help the population that's coming in, our new neighbors here in Western New York. Thank you all for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's again share some information about the organizations represented on the program. Jewish Family Services of Western New York. They're located at 70 Barker Street in Buffalo. Their phone number is 716-883-1914. And their website, jfsbuffalo.org. They could use your donations anytime. Another organization that would appreciate your support is the Jericho Road Community Health Center. They're located at 184 Barton Street in Buffalo. Their number is area code 716-348-3000, and their website, jrchc.org. BestSelf Behavioral Health, another organization always in need of support for its many programs, has multiple locations throughout our hometown. Connect with them by calling 716-884-0888 and online at bestselfwny.org. I'm John DeShulo in for Samantha Lashaw. We live in a very diversely rich community. Let's live and work together and make Western New York the best it can be. Thanks for watching. Be safe and be well. A production fee for the preceding presentation of Your Hometown Health Connection was made by Buffalo Healthy Living Magazine and its sponsors.